the saw-backed flower mantid that stuck to my finger when I touched it. I didn't even know he was there. I'm glad that he's come now back to his plant. He's obviously just hunting this particular area, hoping for an insect to come and land close to this flower or on the actual leaf itself, and then he'll strike out with those front claws. Just have a look at how fantastic these insects are. Honestly, this year, probably my favorite insect, the ones that we're finding most often, is these little saw-backed flower mantid. There is a lot of funny noises coming from the bush around us. I'll tell you, I think there's elephant pretty much in a arc around us. So from there to about there, we've been hearing noises of elephant. We've actually walked through them unknowingly. We did see some fresh tracks a little bit earlier on, but nothing that's around us. It seems like they're now in this area here. It's good, it gives us a direction to walk in, eh? It's nice. All right, let's carry on going. See what else we can find over here. All right, and while we're searching around over here for something else to show you, why don't we send you over to James in the tent for a lot more of his discoveries.
Well, the thing that we're doing here, everybody, is creating, you won't believe it when I say this to you, a scarecrow. I'm creating a scarecrow simply because I've been unable to make the caterpillars grow, I think, at a sufficient rate in their box. And so I'm going to put them onto some wild plants and hope that the birds don't get them. The only way I'm going to stop the birds getting them is to scare them away, and that is going to be with a scarecrow. That is going to be the sort of head and torso and arms of the scarecrow. I'm going to top it with our baboon skull that we have in the tent, and then we're going to make some eyes, obviously with what we made eyes for Simon the Serval with last week, marula fruits. And that is going to be my scarecrow. So hopefully it will be done by the end of the show, and then it will make its international television debut tomorrow. We'll call it Worzel Gummidge in honour of Worzel Gummidge himself. I don't know if any of you know who Worzel Gummidge is. My mother's very favourite book. She still reads them when she's feeling a little bit sad. Good. I'm not going to subject you to the rest of the building process, but I will show you as it progresses. I am about as good as creating things like this as I am at drawing, so you can imagine what it's going to look like, David. I want you to walk very, very slowly around that way. And I know that you don't like taking orders from me, but just this once, because there is a blue. You see the butterfly there? All of the butterflies are starting to come out as the heat starts to build. Can you see it there, Dave? It's just to your left. You're right in front of it. It's right. Can you see it? You're about to squash it. Stay where you are. Don't move. Oh, it's flown off. Wait, it's going to land. There. Butterflies are notoriously difficult. They come out only when it's hot enough for them to do so. And then, of course, they fly around because it's hot enough for them to do so. So unless you see them sitting, which is very seldom, it's very difficult. Now, as I said to you, if you just sit on the ground for a sufficient period, you will find something. Can you see in here, Dave? There is a minuscule spider, an orb web spider that has set itself up a web just in amongst two grass stalks. There are 3 different webs here, probably 3 different spiders. One in my hand is now, another one facing that way, and another one over here. I know you can't see them, I'm sorry about that. But it is just astounding. In amongst the grass stalks, 3 different orb web spiders. This is, of course, the great pleasure of summer, which does not always happen in the winter. In the winter, we'd be staring at grass, and I'd be making up stories and telling you more about Worzel Gummidge and my mother's enjoyment of the books. But that is not the case now. Good. Now, just I keep getting distracted by things here. Here it is. This piece of grass had quite a lot of moisture on it earlier on. Oh, it seems to have dried on it. There's some. You see that there? I want to go and look at that under the microscope. I think that is sugar. And this is what will be attracting the ants and things up onto the top of this Digitaria or finger grass stalk. So let's go and have a look at it under the microscope and see what it looks like. Ronald is back up and running. You'll be pleased to know he hasn't found his dog friends yet, unfortunately. I was really hoping that he was going to have a dog interaction. Now, where is the moisture? There we go. It's all sticky, this thing. I'll put this down a bit. Move it under. Put it down a bit more. Focus slightly. Ooh. There's an insect. There's an insect. I don't know what that was. As I said, you will discover something. You sit long enough somewhere. There it is. That's very cool. Right, now let's just move this through here. I'm just going to focus. Let's ignore the insect. I couldn't begin to tell you what kind of insect it is. It's all so confusing. And there is the sugary substance. See that kind of caramelized. There, that's caramel basically. Grass caramel. Marvelous. And that's what the insects are after. Very nutritious, full of sweetness. Oh, sorry everyone, I know this is a bit difficult, but it's really quite difficult to manipulate this thing. There we go. Oh, wonderful. So that's that caramelite thing that looks like toffee is in fact what we're looking at. And that's nectar that comes out of that seed and will attract various kinds of pollinators. Oh, very cool. I think we might have to have a taste of that. Let's see what it tastes like. David, I'm now going to taste the grass.
All right, thanks.
Yes, look, it's almost tasteless. But I've now discovered that there are also insects, further insects on here. Look at that thing. Look at that. That is cool, eh? That must be an aphid, surely. No, an aphid is an arachnid. It's not an aphid. There's an aphid behind it, though. I mean, this is just astonishing. I had no idea. I don't know what this is. It's an insect. It's got 6 legs, 2 antennae. That's all I can tell you about it. I'm sure it's after the same stuff I've just eaten. It might actually be milking that aphid behind it. I'm pretty sure that's an aphid behind it. There comes something else now to the top of the screen. Oh, it's another aphid. Is it an aphid, though? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's also 6. It's not an aphid. It's got 6 legs. It's a baby one of the same. It's a baby one of the same. And I tell you why I'd say that. Is that it's got the same little spikes coming out of its bottom. I mean, it truly is remarkable. This one piece of grass is an ecosystem unto itself. This is just marvelous. Well, I suppose this might be a good time to use the old term from the sublime to the ridiculous, but we're going to go from the ridiculous to the sublime.
We've managed to relocate on Karula again. She actually didn't go too far. She'd sat herself up in a marula tree for a very, very short while, and then something caught her attention on the other side of the mulwati. We then discovered that there was a herd of impala in the distance, and there was one male that was giving off a slight snort, but it sounded like he had a bit of a sore throat. He wasn't really giving off a proper alarm call, and they've moved off, and Karula is now taking a little bit of a nap in this lovely long grass. And it's a good spot. I mean, I could barely see her. If I don't look at the monitor, I can't see this leopard in the distance. She's completely hidden, just in the shade perfectly, and then of course behind all of that grass. Isn't that amazing? Completely disappeared. So for some unsuspecting impala, it would be great for her, because they could come walking down towards her, even a bushbuck or an nyala, which we often see around here, and they wouldn't even know that she was there. She'd just lay flat down in the sand, even more flat than what she is at the moment, and sit patiently and wait for them to come about. And I think she'll be lucky. I think if she hangs around in this area for most of the day, she will probably catch something. And just because it's going to be an absolute scorcher today, it's already quite hot now. I'm going to guess that the temperature is probably around maybe 85 degrees Fahrenheit. I reckon it's somewhere around there. And those animals are going to have to come and drink. Was it only 74? Oh my goodness, how off. Anyway, it feels very hot, but perhaps because I'm sitting in one spot in the sun, and that it feels a lot hotter. Well, that was a poor performance by me, hey Brian? It wasn't my best attempt at guessing the temperature.
It is pretty hot up there.
Alright, I was just listening to a question coming through there very quickly. Now, Chrissy from North Carolina, you were wondering...
Lost your audio?
Have you lost me? Am I back again?
I think you switched your pack off.
Oh no. Let me check. Seems as though I pressed the button, sorry. I'm back again. Yeah. Sorry about that, everybody. I leaned against my chair and then I switched my mic pack off. My apologies. So as I was saying, so Chrissy from North Carolina, you're wondering if Karula were to have more cubs, would Shongile or Hasana harm them? Possibly. Especially if they'd gone off on their own once they've left her, of course, which is exactly what will happen. And I reckon if those cubs were on their own and Karula wasn't around to defend them, they might take the opportunity out. But you never know. Nature is a strange thing, and we've all seen some really incredible sort of encounters out here, and you never know. Maybe something comes around where that doesn't happen. I've seen it where, and I've spoken about Little Bush, who's a leopard, down in the southern Sabi Sands, and she had 2 cubs, and her older daughter, obviously, she started living next door to her mother. Her name is Kagilia, and the one day we had an amazing sighting with them, with Little Bush, her 2 new cubs before she lost one of them, and Kagilia, and they were all feeding on a carcass together. Happily, there was a couple of snarls here and there, but Kagilia left the little ones alone, and I think that's an amazing sighting, and I don't know if it's too uncommon, but you really never know, I suppose. And I remember they're opportunistic, so they might even snatch them up if they're desperate and they haven't eaten anything. You know how tough it is for a leopard to go off on their own, especially when they've been provided for most of their life. They might sort of feel that they have to do something like that. But let's hope that it does not come to that. But I'm just wondering where Shongile is going to go, because you've got Tandi to the east of Karula's territory, and then you've got Shadow sort of to the southwest of Karula's territory. And I'm trying to think who's sort of north. I'm not familiar with the leopards up in Buffelshoek area. Shaluva, the young Shaluva, but she hasn't been seen for quite some time. And then we know it was unfortunate that Shaluva 2005 is no longer with us anymore. I'm just trying to think who else is around and about. So I wonder if she's going to maybe open up a spot. What about this sort of the northern corner, hey Brian? There's no one really living up top there, isn't there? Around sort of Sydney's Dam and that spot. So that might be, of course, a spot for her to go in, but we never know. We're actually just going to have to wait and see. We can speculate as much as we like, but we won't know for sure. We're going to try and head back towards those cubs and see what they're up to, but I'm going to send you back across to Steph now, who has got something with 8 legs.
You know, it's not every day that we get to see one of these golden orbweb spiders, and then it's even rarer that we get to see one of these golden orbweb spiders busy building her web. This is a female golden orbweb spider. We're seeing them ever more frequently as these days are going by. I think in the last 2 days I've seen 3 of them, which is fantastic. And she has been building the entanglement snares around her main web. So her main vertical web, the web that the orb is on, is almost complete. But what she's doing now is she's adding a net of very strong, non-sticky fibers or web elements in a very haphazard pattern. And they're designed specifically to slow down the flight of a large insect so that it doesn't break straight through her web, so that it slows it down, and then they fall onto the horizontal orb web, which is very, very sticky and entangles them. But what is incredible is just watching how she goes with no apparent pattern. Sometimes down, up, right, left, strengthening some, leaving others only single elements. You know, you'd think that it was chaos, that she's just doing this based on something, but there's a very specific pattern to what she's doing. She's making sure that every gap is covered by multiple lines of silk that are vertical and horizontal, diagonal, going towards you, coming towards me at different angles. Really is some of the most amazing things. And she's filling the gap now, probably out to about half a foot away from the vertical orb web, a half a foot in front of it and a half a foot behind it, full of these entanglement strands. Like I said, it's not from a silk that's sticky. They're designed primarily just to knock an insect off its path and to get it to slow down before falling into that orb web. Now what she's doing is she's attaching those entanglement snares to a nest or a web of silk that's lying in the center of her orb. She even has a little bit of a larder going. That's that little bit of detritus that you can see vertically above her. Or it's to ward off potential or animals that have the potential to break her web and to break all the hard work that she's done. See, now she's cleaning herself. Spiders can get caught in their own web, especially the sticky web. So a lot of them have either a type of oil that coats their legs, or they have the ability to walk on non-sticky strands. Now, Mary, apparently you've just wanted to know if spiders can get caught in their own silk. Yes, they can, but only the sticky silk. So only in this particular case, the only silk that's sticky is the orb, the actual circular elements of the web. Only those webs are sticky, and she can get caught in it. She's covered in a layer of fine hairs, and apparently a type of oil that doesn't allow the web to stick to themselves. But you can sometimes see they have to maintain their legs. They chew their legs clean, and they also quite careful when they're walking over that part of the web. You can sometimes see it sticks to their legs, and they have to untangle themselves. So definitely spiders can get caught in their own webs. I don't think it's true for all spiders. Some spiders don't make these massive elaborate orbs. Some of them have very specific functions for their silk. But in this particular case they can. Looks like she's now resting. Now, Anna-Marie, you wanted to know what's the largest spider that I've ever seen? Probably one of the tarantulas, or as we call them out here, the baboon spiders. Oh, is this a golden orbweb spider? Sorry, Anna-Marie. Yes, this is a golden orbweb spider. Oh. Anna-Marie, I don't know if I could have massacred your question any more than I did. Please excuse me. So your question was, what is the largest golden orb web spider that I've ever seen? About as big as my hand. So they get to about that big. That's the largest, absolutely largest. On a very wet year where the insect load is high, right from November all the way through to April. By the time April comes about, you've got some golden orb web spiders that are about as big as my hand. Abdomens literally thicker than your thumb, easily sort of the diameter of a large coin, and long legs. So 3 times the size of this particular spider is the largest one that I've ever seen. Please excuse me for hurting your question like I did. Now, we haven't really moved much further than we did when you were last with us. Now, Stephen, you've asked me the question that I wanted to answer Anna-Marie's from. You've asked, what is the largest spider that I've ever seen? That has to be one of the baboon spiders, in particular the golden baboon spider, or golden brown baboon spider as we call it here. It's the largest spider in South Africa, and I saw a particularly big female. We've all seen big tarantulas in collections and on pictures and in pet stores and things like that. And this golden brown baboon spider is pretty much as big as the largest baboon spider that you'll see. Not as large as the largest bird-eating spiders from the tropics, but just smaller than that. Easily bigger than my hand, but much more robust. Thick legs, fangs that are half an inch long. Big abdomen, so big that they can't even climb. If they had to fall off of something, even a little height, they could burst themselves open. They carry that much weight with themselves. So a really big, robust spider. A golden brown baboon spider, a female golden brown baboon spider. That's the largest spider that I've ever seen. Right, so what are we going to do for the rest of this walk? The sun is absolutely hammering down at the moment. It is probably way into the 80s. It's going to get into the 90s at the moment today. I think those dogs and those leopard have definitely got the way with it. Resting in the shade and resting next to the water, that is exactly what we need to start doing now. But anyway, without further ado, why don't we send you back to have a look at those fantastic wild dogs.
Steph is absolutely right. They have got the right idea. It is already blisteringly hot, and it's not even 8 o'clock in the morning. And already I think the temperature in the sun must be close to over 30 degrees, so 86 Fahrenheit. Though it really is very, very warm this morning. And I'm just thinking, I've just been trying to figure out how Veerman and myself can find ourselves a patch of shade and still sit and wait for the wild dogs. I'm surprised they went flat this early in the morning. Can hear them screeching some more. I'm surprised they've already gone to sleep, but I suppose it is because it's so hot. But there's something that isn't asleep, and I'm surprised Ronald didn't see them, actually. There's a whole troop of baboons that's hanging around the Voyatella Dam once again. The Voyatella troop of baboons, actually. We've been seeing them more and more regularly. Now I can't see them, but I did hear them. And there's also some Nyala. Sorry, I wondered what was crawling up between my toes. It was a fruit chafer. It was a very strange feeling. Bye-bye. There's one other thing I wanted to show you just quickly while the dogs are sleeping and not up to terribly much. It is the first time I've seen one here, and I really don't want to get it on my skin. I don't mind touching it with my fingers because the skin on my fingers is much thicker. Now, there we go. It is a type of moth that had become the bane of my existence where I used to work before I started working for Safari Live. And it is, unfortunately, I think, reaching... Oh, no, I really don't want you on my skin. Please don't be on my skin. Please, please, please. I'll explain why in a second. It's a type of moth... Apparently James had this moth earlier. It's called a processionary moth. And it's called a processionary moth because the caterpillars of a processionary moth walk in a procession with the front one with its head against bottom, if you know what I mean. They walk right next to each other. And they do that so that they look like a stick rather than a line of caterpillars walking along. The reason I'm reluctant to allow it A, on my clothes or B, on my skin, I don't mind so much on my fingers, is that there is a very light, powdery substance that it gives off its wings. And that is
unbelievably itchy. Now, that's one of the big reasons why, if you live out here, you do not leave your clothes out overnight on a washing line, because you will find yourself the next day scratching. One of the funniest things I ever saw, shame it's actually not that funny, but it was a bit funny, was somebody who was training to be a guide with me many, many years ago. He did leave his washing out overnight on the washing line, and he put on his underwear. I have never seen anybody move so fast. The sheer speed with which he went from his room to the bathroom in order to try and scrub them off was utterly astounding. And I suspect, this is the first one I've seen here, I suspect this is what caused... Oh, it's gone now. Out of the vehicle. I suspect that that's what caused Brent's incredible allergic reaction, where VM recorded him scratching up and down on the tree because he was so desperate. That's, I think, what caused it. I think it was a processionary moth in his clothes. There you go. Stay away from processionary moths. They make you itchy. Some people worse than others. The dogs don't seem terribly bothered. He's still fast asleep. They haven't even been too stressed out about the baboons. I was wondering about whether there'd be any kind of interaction with baboons, particularly with puppies. I mean, can you see one there? Where? Here we go. I think I saw... No? Did I see one? They're definitely there. I saw them earlier, and I heard them screeching at each other. Our Fuzzman Sparkles, you wanted to know what would happen if a wild dog pack ran into baboons. Nothing... There we go. Well done, VM. Somebody's riding on Mom's back. It's the troop that we are starting to get to know once again. Nothing major, I don't think. I was just curious to see whether or not the puppies would be interested in pursuing them. Our big male baboon is larger than a wild dog, but of course the wild dog have the advantage of numbers. But I don't think baboons and wild dogs would really come into major conflict with each other. The baboons know that they can climb a tree, which of course wild dogs most definitely cannot. But I wonder how many recorded cases there are of baboons being killed by wild dogs. There must be some. Just because these wild dogs are such opportunistic hunters and they're so fast, surely there must have been one time where a baboon was caught out by a wild dog pack. The wild dogs, of course, also wouldn't want to risk injury from the defensive male baboons, but they also know that they're probably faster on the ground. It would have been interesting. But clearly, the day is just too hot for such shenanigans. Now, Brandon, you want to know what the largest animal is that the wild dogs will hunt. Of course, it depends on numbers, which I think is relatively self-explanatory. There were wild dogs in the Manuletti just a few months ago that were recorded as hunting buffalo calves. And not small buffalo calves either, sort of year-old buffalo calves or 8-month-old buffalo calves. And that's probably about the limit. I've seen them go for waterbuck before, which is also particularly large. That's one of our largest antelope in terms of mass. Even zebra potentially for a large pack of wild dogs, but zebra are tricky animals because they fight back. So it would have been, I would have loved to have seen, not because I want to see a buffalo die, but because I would love to have seen the interaction between a wild dog pack and the buffalo herd, because they must have caused total panic within that buffalo herd to have been able to pick out a calf. Because once a buffalo herd rallies and once it gets back to, when it regains its senses, they would easily be able to defend a calf from wild dog packs. And yet they were. That's exactly what they were doing. Which immediately led to a concern, initially, of potential infection by bovine tuberculosis for wild dog packs. But of course that could happen no matter what they catch. Kudu carry it. There are lots of different things that carry it. Okay, sleepy puppies. We're going to sit with them a little while longer. I don't think they're going to be up to too much anymore. In the meantime, let's go and see how James's construction of his scarecrow is going.
It's gone better than can possibly be imagined. This is a truly terrifying scarecrow. Behold, Wurzel Gummidge. Is he not rather special? Let me talk you through his construction. He's made of Terminalia sericea. That's his trunk over there. And here's his beautiful arms. We attached the arms to the trunk using Terminalia sericea bark that we plaited together and then tied him on. Very good. We used traditional gaffer tape to put on the more delicate hand extensions, which are just leaves of Terminalia sericea. And then, of course, we topped him with the baboon skull and put 2 traditional now marula fruits in his eyes. And I think no bird is going to come anywhere near the bush where the caterpillars are going to be living soon. Isn't that wonderful? So that's where he's going to stay. And yes, Kirsten, no, he cannot bite because his mouth is shut tight, but you'll find that most scarecrows are probably fairly immobile. I've wired his jaw shut because it wouldn't stay on the top of the scarecrow, so I think that's quite good. There we go. Is he looking up a bit, David? Does he need to look down more? No. Is he? He must look fairly terrifying there, don't you think?
Absolutely.
I would quite like the Djuma troop of baboons to come past and see what they thought of him. Anyway, I will put him in place, and then when you see us next, he will be in his position. I think it's probably going to be quite far down that way. If I'm not mistaken, that's probably where we'll have to put him. But we'll figure that out over the course of the next little while. I'm just wiring his jaw a little bit further shut. There we go. Make every starling in the region rush for cover. Especially if we put some speakers next to it going, bow, bow. Right, we'll put him down over here for now. He's not of the most robust construction.
What's his name, John?
His name is Wurzel Gummidge. That is... Yes, there we go. Now he's looking down a bit more. I may have to wire the back of his jaw shut as well. Just quickly look around here. Yes, now he looks, you see that he's got a very serious look on his face. Definitely. Okay, well, we'll put him next to the bush and see if it has the desired effect. Excellent. Good. There was something I wanted to show you under the microscope, but I think I've now forgotten what it was. It may have escaped. As Kirsten says, how can we possibly top the scarecrow? Well, we probably can't. Kirsten, is there anything... Are those baboons at the dam cam? No, they've gone. Okay, right. Let's just turn this thing around. I was hoping maybe the baboons were around Ronald, but they don't seem to be. Okay, so we're not going to look at Ronald. But the dogs are still coming, are they? No, they're not coming. Okay, good. Whatever I had under here, I'm afraid, has now escape head. Let's go outside and find... The other thing I want to do is just check on some of these other grass stalks with those quite remarkable insects. In fact, here they are. On these Digitarias, that's the plant that we picked earlier, that's the one in my mouth, actually, that I put under the microscope, because we tasted the sugar. But they've actually got quite a few of those strange brown insects on them that I think are milking the aphids. I can hear some alarm callings to sticklers. I think they may have seen Wurzel Gummidge. Anyway, that's very encouraging for our TV show. We'll be able to show our viewers those remarkable insects then. No, this thing's just stuck together by its own sugars, I'm afraid. Good. So we've had some wonderful time with the wild dogs. We've had some wonderful time with those leopards, which have unfortunately gone to sleep. And we are, of course, going to hope against hope that the 2 of them manage to stay where they are until Monday morning so that we can have them for our TV show. Right. Jack, you're wondering why ponds are called pans here in the bush. They're called pans because, I don't know actually, but they just are. They're called pans out here, probably because they're shallow depressions normally in the ground that are, I guess they'd probably be shallower than a pond, but you could just as easily call them a pond. A pond for me has always been a kind of where there are frogs and, well, Kermit the Frog might be singing there. He's, of course, the Muppets, not the wind in the willows. But that sort of thing, whereas a pan has always been a bush thing for me, where there's mud and it's a wallow, basically. I suppose that would be the difference. A pan is basically a waterhole that was once a wallow. It started off as perhaps a place where warthogs came, then buffalo, and it got bigger and bigger until it became larger. Larger still, of course, the animal that Taylor has now.
We have indeed got a large animal. We're not going to get too close to this big gentleman that we're looking at the moment. This is a ginormous elephant bull. We haven't actually seen too many like him around in the last couple of months. But sadly for us, he is in must. Much bigger than the one we briefly saw this morning in the pre-show. Maybe as he moves off, we'll see if we can get another view. We'll see if we can sneak down on the road. But as you know, bulls in must. You want to avoid them. You don't want to take your chances too much, especially where it gets thick here, because if he does sort of change his attitude slightly, it will make it exceptionally difficult for Ryan and myself to make an escape. Well, we do want to make an escape. We'll see if we can get another view of him. Oh, how's that smell? We're downwind of him now. He's really big, this elephant. In body size, he must be at least 5.5 tons. He's a big boy. There he goes. Oh, I think he's going to disappear. Sorry, Brian. I parked on a bump. There his bum goes. Sadly, I think that's the end of this big elephant bull for us. Maybe he'll pop out a bit. Oh, no, he's stopped. He's just, you see, he was just in the Buffels Hook Dam. He rolled forward. No, I'm not rolling anywhere. No, there he goes. He's carrying on again. So he's moving into the thicket. But he's just had a little bit of a mud bath, not a big one, just dipped his feet in. And now he's carrying on again. But what a great tusker, don't you think? Lovely tusks. And all the insects are bothering him quite a bit. They've been bothering us today as well. They've been out really early, which is unusual, because normally you get like about an hour, 45 minutes at least, grace period from the biting flies. But not today. It seems as though they were awake before even we were all awake this morning. Hello, boy. Now we're looking at him. You can see he's just swaying from side to side, trying to keep the insects at bay, and as he munches on some grass. And I mentioned to you that he was in must. Now have a look there. Stanley, you were actually wondering exactly that. Can you see? You have to look at his nether regions, but you can see that he is dribbling urine. When he puts his weight on his right leg, you should see it again. And this is a telltale sign of a bull in must, is that they can dribble up to 300 liters of urine every single day for the period that they are in must. Also, they have this sort of swagger in their step. It's quite hard to describe it, but I'll have to demonstrate for you at some point how elephant bull and must walks. And then, of course, if you can't see the actual dribbling, you might even be able to see some staining between the back legs. And then, as I described earlier, the stench that you get off a bull. It smells like musky drain water, but he's now disappeared far into the distance. Something that a lot of people can get confused with is that if you look at their temporal glands, so in case you've just started watching, next to the elephant's eyes, they have these little glands on the sides of their face, and often they weep, and it's normally an overstimulation of adrenaline. So it can mean a number of different things. It can mean that they're sad, it can mean that they're happy, maybe there's not a lot of food around, all sorts of different things. And of course the bulls, when they're in must, get this, they're excited, you know, they're looking for all the breeding herds, and but just that on its own, because the females and young elephants' calves can also get it. We might actually see him again. Let's see if we can try and get a look. I actually realized that this road is a little bit shorter than I thought it was, and he wasn't moving straight into the bushes. It looked like he was maybe actually going slightly north, so he could pop out on this fire break. Let's see. They're so thick in here. I just hope we get some more rain though. Like I was saying yesterday on the walk, everything is still lovely and lush and green, but it's dry now. You can almost feel that the sun has definitely damaged everything that's around us. It's so harsh. Right, it should be around about here. And if we don't see anything now, I'm going to stop just up ahead in this next gap, and I'll switch off and we'll see if we'll be able to hear him. Let's listen. Yes, he's actually slowly coming this way. I can just see some movement in the distance. You might see the branches moving around. There we go. We're going to sit with this elephant and hopefully he'll pop out and show himself again. We'll keep a safe distance, but we're going to go back across to Steph, who seems to be stealing the title of Spider-Man from James.
We have found quite a few spiders today, and this is no exception on the end of this branch. What you're looking at over there is one of my favorite spiders. And see if we can see, just busy peeping out the top. You see my finger? This is a jumping spider, or the salticids, and I like them because they just got so much character. Very similar to a praying mantis, I suppose, and the fact that they're always busy doing something, and they've got quite, for an insect, they've got a face with quite a lot of expression on it. Now, what this particular spider is doing is hunting for flies. We're on a game path, and I think as animals are moving to and from this game path, they are leaving their flies on the leaves here. And this jumping spider is in just a prime position to hunt for those flies. Just look at the colors on them. This is the only insect that I've ever seen, barring some caterpillars, that are able to produce the color gold, or at least able to reflect the color gold with a whole mixture of different things. And I think from my angle, I'm just going to turn this and see if from my angle I can see some gold on this spider. No? Just on the legs a little bit. Interesting, eh? See, the spider's busy turning around now. I'm going to let this leaf go. I have this shake that develops when I'm trying not to shake, and it's like looking at a leaf in a storm there. Now that the wind has stopped, it's probably easier for me to just leave the leaf. There we go. Absolutely easier. There you go, looking at you now. You can see those expressive faces of those two eyes, those two binocular eyes. The reason why they have those two simple eyes on the front of their face, light collecting, they see a very clear picture, but those two eyes are next to each other, one slightly higher and further back than the other one, and it is able to judge distance that way. And they do that because these spiders can jump at prey. Incredibly clever little spiders. They have brains that fill almost the entire head part of their body, that front cephalothorax area, and are able to learn. So they're able to learn how to hunt the insect that is predominant in its area. Very similar to how lions do it, I suppose. Lions will also learn how to hunt the prey species that is most common in that area, and in this particular case, the spider may have learned how to hunt for flies. A short little trip there. Where are you going? I just love these. So if it's flies, or if it's ants, or if it's other spiders even, these spiders learn how to hunt what is best. Let's see what it does now. See if it jumps to the next leaf. Now they've got the most amazing way of jumping. They don't jump by contracting muscles like you and I would. They jump by pumping fluid into their back legs through a massive pump-like structure. So their whole body doesn't have a bone inside of it. It's almost hollow. Has these channels though, and in those channels they pump a substance called hemolymph, and they can do it with such force into their legs that they can jump many times their own body length in actual fact. And that's what these spiders do. Where are you going? No? Got scared? It's actually streaming out silk. So now the silk, so what the spider's doing is incredible. So what the spider's doing is streaming out silk into the breeze. I actually think that it wants to travel. Or it's waiting for a branch to catch the silk. This silk now must be easily a couple of yards long now. Let me see if I can follow it. I think that the silk is actually wanting, the spider's wanting to leave this bush. Doesn't feel like walking all the way down this tree, walking across the next one. So what it's doing, streaming out silk, the breeze will let that silk catch onto another tree. And then that will be the zip line that the spider uses to the next bush. I think that's absolutely incredible. I've very, very rarely seen that. Okay, now the breeze is blowing the silk out in this arc, almost all the way to where you're standing at the moment. See here. Yes, that's really epic. Let me see if I can help the spider along as we can see. Attach it. No, it's blown away. Right, we're going to stay. I'm actually going to see if the spider does do what I'm just predicting over there. We are going to, in the meantime, send you over to those wild dog. We'll bring you back if he does move.
And we are still with our gorgeous wild dogs, and in this case, patience has paid off, and they are back up once again. Although it's quite a sad sight to see them gathered as they are in the middle of the Voyatella Dam with absolutely no water. They came down quite excited. I think they might even have been looking forward to having a bit of a roll in the mud or a lie down in the mud. But unfortunately, there just isn't anything. I was hoping that might sort of move them towards Ronald, who's at the pan, the pumped pan that's just above this. But unfortunately it doesn't seem to be the case. I thought perhaps they'd go and have a drink. And it just goes to show what we've been talking about. As much as we talk about the fact that the rains... Run, Ronald, run! You see Ronald racing. Hold on, let me go forward so everyone can show you. I can see Ronald racing. One of the dogs has, I think, seen it. Race, Ronald. Come on, keep going, Ronald. There it goes. Ronald racing along at top speed. Here comes the dog. The dog's seen it. He's curious now. Look at it. What is that? What is that? It's a new friend for you to play with. Yes, go play with it. Go play with it. Go see. Go see Ronald. Ronald's been dying to make a new friend. There goes Ronald. I can still see Ronald. So could the dog. And Ronald and the dog could have a very, very interesting relationship. Dog doing a little hop skip. Nope, I've decided actually the pack's got too far away. Guys, you won't believe what I just saw. None of them believe him. Oops, we better get moving. Sorry, Ronald. Nearly. Uh-oh, we really better get moving. Now they're off. Sorry, Ronald. No friends for you today. Next time. It was so close, James. So close. That would have been so cool. Ah, it'll happen. It'll happen. Patience. Right, where have these dogs gone? Connor! You've been spoiling us. We need you back. Yo, that was quick. I think they've sliced through here already. Jeepers, that was fast. Oh dear. They shot off in here. They might have gone into the middle of this, what we call a block. It's the space between two roads, the bush between two roads. And this one is notoriously difficult. Oh my goodness. I have absolutely no idea where they went. I got so distracted by Ronald that I should have raced across to the other side of the dam. Dogs, dogs, dogs. Where did you... Whoopsie. I've got to be a bit gentle with the vehicle because I think Steph would actually... I'm not quite sure what he would do to me if I broke Wendy now on a Sunday before the TV show, but I have a feeling it wouldn't be very positive. He certainly wouldn't be giving me gifts of flowers and chocolates. Pardon?
He'll give you spanners.
He'll give me spanners. Alright, while I search for the dogs that have managed to give me the slip, let's go across so that James can express his woes.
Very sad, everybody, very sad. Ronald is now parked in a perfect position, but he's not very fast, you see, so it took him a while to get to where he is now. Let's have a look at his view. There he is, and you see he's come down towards the dam where the dogs were, but unfortunately they've all absconded in the direction that he's now facing. Oh, there's a butterfly, though. Oh, no. Oh, let's go back a bit. No, Ronald, back. Oops, he's really getting a little bit uppity, isn't he? Oh, goodness gracious, I think you're going to fall over. Flies aplenty. It's quite uneven ground. There we go. That's where the dogs went. All right, Ronald, you can just rest there next to that grass stalk. Look at all the flies. There's a bird. There's another fly on the end of that Waltheria bush. Let's just go and have a look and see if we can't identify it. This is marvellous. All right, well, there we go. Ronald's got a fly, but Marvin the Matrice has got the dogs. There it is. Well done, Marvin. You found them. The reason he's called Marvin, of course, is because Connor finds it offensive that I've called it Marvin, so that's why I just continue to do it, because it's very funny. Now, this is interesting behaviour. I'm sure, as Jamie said to you, for them to be now on the move when the temperature has risen like it has, I think is quite strange. They're obviously still hungry. But also, you know, the other thing that I was reading the other day is that, of course, energy balance out here is always at a fairly fine point anywhere in the wild, because things tend to be, what was I going to say? Things tend to be kind of, everything here lives on at the cusp of not getting enough to eat, not getting enough energy, or many things like that. Let's go back up to the drone. We seem to be okay there. And when they chase like they did today, I mean, it wasn't a very long chase. It wasn't a great distance. They had a little bit to eat. There's a certain amount of recovery that has to take place before they can then carry on again. And I think that's probably what's happened. They're now decided they're still hungry, and so they're going to carry on. Trevor, as the big bad wolf said to Little Red Riding Hood, all the better to hear you with, my dear. Wild dogs have got such big ears because they need to hear well. That's as simple as that. And their major form of finding out where each other are during a hunt or just post a hunt when the feeding has begun is through hearing. Oh, look, scrub hair, nailed. Absolutely nailed. Back to Jamie quickly.
Another scrub hare bites the dust at the speed of light. I have never, these poor scrub hares, it's carnage. Hold on a second. It just ran into them. Again. You can hear them squealing. Hold on a sec. Oh, one dog is racing off with it in its mouth. It doesn't want to share. Hold on, it's going to come back round again. There it goes. Accompanied by a trail of squealing, begging puppies. That was unbelievably fast. Once again, the scrub hare. I just cannot believe the amount of scrub hare that these wild dogs have caught. Racing around us. I'm going to sit still because this wild dog could end up anywhere. Nope, it's mine. It's my scrub hare. It's my scrub hare. It's still going. The other puppies are begging. It looks like only half a scrub hare. And the rest of them are squealing. Trotting off proudly. There we go. I need my scrub hare in peace. Away from all of you. It's like one of the adult females managed to get it. Here comes a pup, looking to see if anybody will share. Buttercup, you want to know how fast the wild dog's metabolism is? Very, very fast is the answer. So rather than being like a lion, which is capable of doing short bursts of high speed, but then overheats very quickly, a wild dog has this sort of constant flow of energy. They're much smaller, so they don't get as hot. And I think their metabolism works particularly fast. However, that being said, they do also have to share food with lots of mouths, and as you've seen, it tends to be quite small meals at a time. So that also might explain, might not just be the speed of their metabolism, it's also the fact that they've got to share as much as they do. And particularly for the adults, when they're being altruistic with the puppies around, they might not end up with as much as they would want to eat to keep themselves in really good condition. But wild dogs are just naturally athletic. And you can imagine that their bodies need to sustain that constant high speed over very long distances. We never see any of our other predators moving like this on a hot morning like today. Karula's fast asleep. Wherever the lions are, they're fast asleep. And this lucky wild dog has finally managed to have its meal. That's a very good question. Speaking of their endurance, Mike, we want to know if they have larger hearts to help with their speed and their endurance. I'm not sure if proportionately they have larger hearts. It sounds like something that might be the case, just in terms of what their bodies, what they demand, or their evolution demands of their bodies. But I'm not 100% sure if their hearts are proportionately larger. Perhaps James in the tent knows whether or not their hearts are larger. I'd be curious. Perhaps James knows about it. I mean, they're deep-chested. I imagine their lungs are particularly well formed. It would also be interesting to know the structure of their muscles, just in terms of how they manage to constantly keep going without an unpleasant buildup of lactic acid. Here come the rest. Are you sure we can't have any scrub hair? Are you absolutely positive that we can't have any scrub hair? Maybe if we just linger here and look hopeful. And those of you with dogs at home might be familiar with that expression when you're having dinner. Okay, let me just shift my angle around since they have settled down now, so that we're not shooting behind us. Now, Barb, you want to know if the puppies catch any of the scrub hairs, or if it is only the adults. Now, I'm sure the puppies do at this age. I have no doubt that they are more than capable of catching scrub hairs themselves. They're big enough, they're strong enough to, and they're skilled enough. And I think, to be honest, from what we've seen of the scrub hair hunts in the chaos, it's basically just whichever wild dog gets lucky enough for them to fly into its mouth. And the scrub hares panic, and there's so many dogs running around that it ends up being a relatively easy thing to catch one. Sorry, bear with me a second. Standing by. Brent, they've just killed a scrub hare. Just stand by. It looks as though they might actually go into the block between Mvubu and Gari Cutline, but they're all over the place for now. Okay, copy. It looks as though they are going into this block, so maybe come along that second shortcut and then start making your way east. Yeah, they're vanishing into this block towards Gari Cutline. Sorry, Brent is on tracking team, lucky for us, because you know how good he is at keeping up with wild dogs, so he's going to be giving us a hand as well. Which way are we going to go, boys and girls? Up, down, left, right, north, south? Sure, I'm getting warm just looking at them. It's baking hot this morning. It really, really is. Okay, which way are we going, guys? I'm just waiting, just trying to figure out exactly what their plans are. It actually looks as though they might go to sleep again in the shade. They might rest up a little bit after their frenetic scrub hare chase. Let's just double check and see whether or not that's the case. Then I can let Brent know that he can relax for now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I feel as though we're missing some completely. I feel as though there's a separate group that's split off somewhere along the line, probably during that scrub hare hunt. Some, but I have no idea where they might be. Not a clue. They're all now resting in the shade, taking a moment to settle down. Brent. Okay, while I chat to Brent and make some plans, let's go over to Taylor, find out where she is.
We are driving on Triple M at the moment. We're going over a couple of corrugations. We're going to turn off of this road at the next turn as soon as we get. This road has really got terrible. And we tried to actually follow that elephant bull, but he was quite sneaky. You won't believe how quickly he came out of the bushes, and then he ducked and went straight into Buffle's hook. So that was sad, because he was really a ginormous elephant. Oh my goodness. Sorry, Brian, all of the corrugations. Yeah, we'll just go slowly here. And then I don't know what we're going to do next. I thought we'd just have a bumble. It's been such a long time since I've been out on a game drive and out on the drive. I thought that we would just check a couple of these roads down here around Impala Plains, this sort of area, and really just see what we bump into. I actually wouldn't mind seeing a herd of impala. Having a look at them to see how big the lambs have all got, if Karula hasn't eaten them all, because my goodness, she's been doing a sterling job at catching the young impala lambs for her lovely cubs. And the reason why we also ended up moving away from Karula and her cubs is Karula tucked her head flat down, as you saw when we left her, so she wasn't really doing too much, unfortunately. And then Shongila and Hosana were lying in the long grass, and we could just see a couple of spots, but we didn't spend too much time there. Here's another drying up mud wallow though. It looks like somebody maybe yesterday was laying in it. This is a nice spot. I think this would be a great spot for a couple of warthogs to come and lay here. It's not particularly deep, and I think it's just the right consistency, sort of between mud and water at the moment, sort of like a nice, like a porridge almost, porridge of mud for warthogs to come and coat themselves in. Now it's hot. Should we try again at guessing the temperature? I think it has to be, and I'm going to be completely shocked if it isn't at least in the 80s now. Kirst will tell us the updated weather though. I think it's so hot now. No, that's wrong. Kirst says that it is 25 degrees Celsius and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. I cannot, or 77, sorry. I can't believe that. Because we're sitting here and it feels like it's at least 30 degrees Celsius, which I could imagine would be in the 80s. I can't believe it. And it's crazy, but we're going to keep moving. We're not going to sit in the sun for too long, because at least there's a gentle breeze at the moment that's blowing over us. Now, we've been chatting a lot about animals and their names, well, pretty much ever since the show has been going. And Chris, you were wondering if we give names to other animals other than the leopards, and we do indeed. We obviously try and avoid things like the buffalo and the elephants and the impala. Norman the gnu is like the exception, but it's typically with the cats and the big cats, of course. Something like a serval and a caracal would be very difficult to try and keep tabs on unless they had distinctive features, and maybe a missing tail or something like that. It's not a common injury, so you'd be able to keep tabs on the smaller cats then. But yes, Chris, lions, the lionesses don't really have names. It's just Amber Eyes, just because she's got prominent amber colored eyes, and that name seems to have stuck. But they're known, the pride of lions that we see is the Nkuhumas, and then we see the Sticks, and sometimes the Torchwood pride, and not very often. But then the male lions ones, the coalition that runs around in this area, the Birminghams. Oh, look, a little canary. Oh no, it's never mind, it's flown away. Oh, maybe it sat there. It sat there, hey. I just did like a little rocking horse for a moment, just on the edge of the branch. Maybe they actually come back. They're having a drink. There's a tiny little canary. Oh, there you go. It's coming back again. It's back at the water. It's playing games with you. Hello. Now, sorry, Chris. So the Birminghams have got names, and that was actually a recent decision. They were formerly known as numbers, sort of 1 to 5, but then unfortunately one passed on due to injuries from a buffalo. And then another one, and then the other 4 we decided to give them names just because they've just got such a presence about them, and they're all their own. They are their own individuals as well, and you could see that their characters were so different. So we'd given them names too. Mfumo, Tinyo, Nsuku, and Nena are the names of the 4 Birminghams. But it just depends. Hello, canaries. Aren't they lovely? Normally they live in quite big groups. It seems to just be 2 of them at the moment. But it's not uncommon to see them in not quite big flocks like the quailias do. You don't see, but you'll see, I've seen a couple of 100 together before once on a big open plain. And actually the other day when I was at Cheetah Plains, the last time that I drove, which felt like ages ago, I was with David. There was actually a nice flock of them sitting on some of those open plains feeding on all the grass seeds. There must have been at least 100, at least, all of them flying around. It was quite beautiful actually. Actually it was when I was scouting. I lied, I wasn't with David, I made that up. I just played out a whole scene in my head, put 2 different things together. But no, that was when I was out tracking. I'd seen that, which was really beautiful. I wonder what's out here. Sometimes this is quite a nice spot. There's actually a black-bellied bustard that lives around here. And I wonder if he's still around. I haven't seen him for a while though. Where are you? There's a spot to check his favorite termite mound. No, he doesn't seem to be here. That's a pity. He must have moved out. Every time I came along this road, I used to see him. Oh, there's something else. Is that a Senegal lapwing? Can you see? Okay, perfect. We have parked. I keep parking poor Brian on bumps. Here's a little birdie. Hello. That is indeed a Senegal lapwing, so not the black-bellied bustard that I was hoping to see, but another beautiful bird nonetheless. I love those little yellow flowers that have popped through. It almost matches its eye. Hey, do you think? Isn't that wonderful? Now, I didn't quite hear what Kirst said. We're going to shoot across to Steph now. And, well, I think he's got something to show you or something to tell you. I'm not sure what it is, but let's go find out.
I got a little bit of both, a show and tell to show you. So what you're having a look at over there is a grasshopper that seems to have jumped into this puddle of water and is now not making any real attempt to try and get out. And that's for a very specific reason. That grasshopper is infected with a bloodworm parasite. And the bloodworm parasite has infected the brain of the grasshopper to such a degree that the grasshopper has had to seek out water. It's compelled to seek out water and has now gotten into the water here where it will die and the bloodworm will come out. Isn't that just the most unbelievable thing? The only other thing I've ever heard of that is similar is the cordyceps fungus, which does a similar thing to ants. They infect the ant is compelled then to seek the sun. It gets up into the canopy of the tree, completely deranged and mad. The cordyceps fungus then erupts from the face and the head and the body of the ant, and its spores then drift through the forest finding other ants. Similar to this grasshopper was infected by the bloodworm parasite. It is driven deranged and mad and is now compelled to find water. And as you can see, definitely something weird. Why is it not swimming to the side? We've all seen grasshoppers swimming to the side before. And this particular grasshopper is not making any attempt at doing that. And it's because it's infected with this bloodworm parasite. Pretty epic, eh? Then we've got another thing that's interesting by this particular pan is South Africa's largest fly. Now, I'm by no means a friend and a fan of flies, but in terms of flies over here, I understand their ecological importance, and this one is pretty cool because it is massive. This is the red-headed fly. And just have a look at this giant of a fly. Now, not to worry, it's not going to bite me and lay an egg that'll make me mad and jump into the swimming pool. It's actually a detritivore, so it feeds on rotting vegetation and mainly elephant dung and mainly the marulas that are rotting in the elephant dung at the moment. That is why this fly is here. But just have a look at the size of that thing. So for those of you with these bizarre collections of insects, that is the red-headed fly, and you can actually see that sucking mouth part probing the stick. Just have a look at that. Isn't that just incredible? That is now a fly that is giant proportions. Why it was lying upside down at this pan, I have no idea. It's actually what drove me to come and have a look at this pan, and then the grasshopper sacrificed himself to the water. But that red-headed fly, the most giant of all flies that we find here in South Africa and in this part of the Kruger National Park. I'm going to put him back there where he was. Who knows what function he was busy fulfilling. Maybe has some other unknown. There we go. Now this particular pan, we can see that there's some tadpoles in it. Now I don't know where James got his tadpoles from in his tent, but we've been battling to find other pans and other pools with tadpoles. From time to time, there's tadpoles that are coming to this particular pool, coming to the surface. There's also a terrapin in here. No more tadpoles that I'm seeing. That grasshopper is now sunk below the surface. It's here. So it's actually died or drowned. That's absolutely amazing, you know. I've never actually witnessed one of these grasshoppers being driven mad and then falling into the water. He is over there, now upside down. It's the back legs and the abdomen. Seeding the next colony of bloodworms, which James had one of the other day in his pond water. How it got in there, what's it all about, who knows. But a bloodworm is a parasite that is the color of blood, a little worm-like creature that is the color of blood that you find in these pans, and which he says I'm going to infest myself with if I keep on drinking water out of my sock and out of the snail shells that I do here. I don't really know. We'll see. James, you've asked the question that I've been asking myself. How would the grasshopper have become infected? James, I've got a feeling it's probably a spore of some sort. It's a the grasshopper eats it off of the grass that he's busy eating. Generally speaking, the sedges and the grass around pans and around watering, or around areas with water, are a lot more nutritious and a lot more green and robust than you find anywhere else. And I think that these grasshoppers you probably find are feeding off of the grass and sedges on the edge of these pans and live in the local vicinity. But when it comes time for the bloodworm to then come out of its or metamorphosize and come out of its host, it would then drive the grasshopper back, not to the same water source necessarily. I mean, I would imagine that bloodworms need to spread their genetic pool as wide as what they can, and that it wouldn't be specific to the pool that it started at. That pool could also be dry as well. But definitely I think the grasshopper eats the grass, ingests the grass, will ingest the bloodworm, either nymph or egg, and then would carry on from there until it is driven mad and then comes back to another water source when it's crazy. As you can see, the grass around me right here is also very, very green at the moment. Oh, awesome. Alrighty, why don't we, on James and the tent, why don't we send you over to him for an update?
Everyone, I've been working so hard. You can see that I'm covered in sweat. And I know that's very unattractive, but it has taken some time for me to whittle down Wurzel Gummage's stump and put him into a stand. And here he is in his final position. Do you not think that he looks very good here, David? Yes, there he is. We've taken away his bottom jaw on account of the fact we didn't like the wire. I may also have to replace his right eye, which is rotting. Yeah, and Kirsten, you're correct. You say he looks very scary. He does indeed. Below him here are going to be the caterpillars. This is where they are going to dwell. I'm going to come and plant a few more Waltheria plants around here in the hopes that I can, convince them to hang about. So that's what I will do during the course of the day. In fact, I might do it quickly now, actually, while you're watching, so that by the time we go off air, you'll be able to see a forest of Waltheria over here. Then I wanted to show you this thing. This I found in the tent, which means somebody has probably showed it to you already, but it's just so remarkable. And this, of course, is the beak or skull of a red-billed hornbill. Now, I've often made comment of the fact that, if you were to attach, say, an orange plastic traffic cone to the front of your head, and then try to sort of peck it accurately on the ground, you'll probably end up with a very severe concussion. The accuracy with which this bird is able to touch and pick up individual ants with this remarkable beak is quite astounding, and it's born of the fact that there are nerves that run all the way down the front of the beak and allow it to feel what's going on. And the beak, of course, is covered with a keratin sheath, and the rest of it is bone. So it is a living part of the skull, and you can see here connected via, what are these called again? The zygomatic arches, I think they're called, that connected to the back of the skull, and I'm sure that they pick up little pieces of sort of shock, and that's how the bird is able to pick up things so amazingly accurately. Also, of course, it helps having eyes that size. Their eyes are bigger than their brains, and it means that their ability to judge distance is obviously exceptional, even though they've got eyes on both sides of their heads. So, in fact, they're probably not very good. They must be able to judge distance very well, otherwise they wouldn't be able to land on trees. So somehow they managed to do it, despite the fact that their eyes are not facing forward, like most predatory animals and birds have. That is the red-billed hornbill. Very nice. Good. Let us perhaps go back into the tent. We'll have a little look of this thing under the microscope. All of the insects and things have run for cover, or they haven't run for cover. They've gone off foraging because it is now, of course, nice and hot, as you can see from the perspiration all over my shirt, which I shall have to have washed before it makes its television appearance tomorrow. Let's just have a look at this keratin under the microscope. There we go. And that is basically what your nails look like under the microscope, my nails as well, and totally and utterly indigestible to everything but the keratin eating moth. Isn't that cool? And I guess you can see it, the sort of layers that it comes in, it must be replenished all the time. I'm sure it gets worn down and worn away as the hornbill uses it to eat, and then it just gets relayed down. I don't know how this hornbill died, but clearly it was a fairly unpleasant end, I'm sure. Can we quickly go to Ronald? Sorry. He's got a beautiful butterfly. Oh, man. There it is. There it is. It's a monarch, but it was sitting right in front of him. And it's not anymore. Let's just move him slightly forward. Oh, there we go. He's all right. He can, in fact, move. That's excellent. All right, well, that's going to be Ronald. He doesn't have much else to do there. And while I do that, Jamie is still with the dogs. Let's go and find out if they've caught another scrub hare.
Luckily for the scrub hare of this area, the wild dogs are now resting in the shade. And my suspicion would be, with the temperatures at the moment, this is going to be how they spend the rest of the days. Unless the promised thunderstorm arrives. There's, in theory, predicted that it is going to storm a little bit later, which of course would definitely prompt them to get up and moving as temperatures drop. But for now, it is, Vem and myself have tried to squeeze ourselves into the most ridiculous patch of shade, because the sun is absolutely baking. It is a proper summer's morning. And the dogs have found themselves the best possible spot underneath a weeping wattle. And weeping wattle, of course, is very, very thick foliage, thick leaves, which provides plenty of shade. I'm actually quite envious of their shady spot. There you go, all of those leaves clustered together. So it makes it very appropriate as use in cases of emergency lack of toilet paper, but at the same time also provides the best possible source of shade. And it's been entertaining watching these dogs as they've sort of shifted around and found their comfortable spot. Every time one of the adults gets up, the pups immediately start begging. They start making little squeaking sounds, just in case, one of the adults feels like regurgitating whatever they've eaten. Wesley, you want to know how they got the tracking device, or the collar that's on one of the dogs, onto the alpha male. Just through periods of extended observation of this particular pack. I'm not sure exactly when it was done, when that collar was placed on the dog itself. It probably, with wild dogs, was done from the back of a vehicle rather than from a helicopter. And essentially what would happen is the dogs get darted with an anesthetic. I think it's probably something similar to Zolitol. So you never ever use M99 on predators, which is the things that they use to tranquilize elephants and rhino and so on. You don't ever use that on predators. So I suspect it's a variant of Zolitol that they use on the dogs, and it essentially puts them into an anesthetized state. The vet will move in very quickly, probably take some samples of fur, maybe even a little bit of skin for DNA purposes, and then the collar will be clipped on. And it's a very, very efficient process. There he comes, the one with the collar. It's a very efficient process. Obviously, you want to keep the amount of trauma that the animal is subjected to an absolute minimum. So it's done. Look, I think that might even be a human-made notch in his ear. I'm not sure. Oh, flop down before I could have a good look. See how the puppies squeak whenever an adult gets up? So the collar will be clipped on very carefully, very quickly, switched on, and then the dog will be given a reversal drug, which will bring it back into consciousness very, very rapidly. I'm not sure if wild dogs darting works the same way as it does with things like lions and leopards. Generally, you cover the face of the predator, and you try not to block their ears too much. They tend to, even in their anesthetized state or their sedated state, they tend to get quite panicked. But it'll all be done very quickly and very efficiently, and of course it is one particular species where human intervention is absolutely justified. Now, I'm not sure about that collar, whether or not it's emitting GPS coordinates. I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't. If it is, sorry. I'm sure it is broadcasting GPS signals maybe once or twice a day, and then at the same time will also have, I assume, the ability to transmit radio frequency signals so that they can actually be tracked using telemetry. That would be my guess. And it's a great way of learning a lot about the dog's movements, which is essential. If you think about it, having a greater understanding of their territories, of the space that they need, will play a vitally important role in terms of reintroducing wild dogs into areas where they used to be, working out which reserves are appropriate in order to do so. The amazing thing about wild dogs is sometimes they turn up in the strangest of places. The reserve that I used to work in, before I started working at Safari Live, was a closed system. It was a 25,000 hectare closed system surrounded by other reserves, but not too far away from Baluli, which is another reserve that is attached to the Greater Kruger National Park, so there's no fences between them. And all of a sudden one day, we used to see them every now and again. We'd see wild dogs trotting down the gravel road. And all of a sudden one day a pack of wild dogs moved in there, set up a den site, and there they are to this day. Now, they are fascinating creatures, and of course, ferocious hunters. Now, Steph has found an animal that definitely would not want to encounter these wild dogs. Let's go and have a look.
Absolutely, these nyala have come down to drink, and they definitely don't want to be found by those wild dogs, that's for sure. But the fact is that we're standing here on foot, 50 yards away from these. And comfortable enough with us on foot to carry on drinking the whole herd. Now, to me, if you were to judge the success or the failure of any approach or the way that you behave in the bush, this is it. The fact that we've got these animals which are absolutely unaware of us, and even if they are aware of us, they're not wanting to move, Chandra. They're not wanting to move from us at all. And the reason for that is that we've decided to create distance before we came too close for them to decide, ooh, hang on, wait, I've got to change the way that I'm behaving right now. There's humans standing there on foot. I can't come down to drink. I must run away. And they've changed it to I'll drink anyway and keep them in my mind. I just wanted to move away there slightly. They were getting a little bit nervous. Then let's see what this youngster does. That youngster doesn't need to drink. Not a care in the world. So like I was saying, I think to judge the success of a walk based on your reaction to the wild animals around you, that would be 100% for me. That is what I achieve to do on these walks. I strive to having no impact on the animals we're observing, and them to carry on with their day irrespective of the fact that we're standing here. And I mean, man standing on foot as close to this for the last, as long as these animals have been on this planet, has represented a significant threat, with the exception of the last 100 years or so, where we've had these national parks and these game reserves and these massive wilderness areas that we protect the animals in, and where we do things like we're doing now, where we're on foot and we're in the vehicles, but we're having no effect on the animals, or as little effect as we can possibly manage, at least anyway. And that there was just a prime example of, for me, a plus point in human evolution, to be honest. I quite like that. That to me was a thumbs up. Alrighty, let me send you over to Taylor.
We're back on one of my favorite roads on Djuma, and it's one that we were walking on yesterday, and of course it is Ingwe Alley, or the Skabenga Road. Just taking a little bumble on it because there's some really nice mud wallows along it, and I was hoping that we were going to stumble across an elephant or perhaps a warthog or something wallowing away in the mud, but it seems as though we haven't had too much luck just yet. We've got a couple of pans. Hang on, let's see if that... Oh, there's a terrapin. At least the terrapin... Oh, there's terrapins. There's many of the little heads sticking out of the waters, but these are very, very small ones. Not like the massive ones that we often see sunbathing out at Buffelshoek Dam. These are really little tiny tots that can survive living in a small pan like this. And they'll probably stay in here for as long as they can until this entire little pool of water has completely dried out. But tiny, probably even smaller than my fist. The little heads just popping out there. And that's incredible. So remember yesterday how we were talking about life living in these seasonal pans? And of course, luckily enough for these terrapins, they have legs and they're able to move away when the water does dry out, unlike the little shrimp and tadpoles that haven't quite developed just yet. They unfortunately get stuck in little pools like this. But I can only imagine with all this hot weather, and I think today is going to be an exceptionally hot day, even hotter than what it was yesterday, we must get some rain soon. We're going to have to. So hopefully when we do in the next couple of days, we can start to actually see the build-up of the cirrus clouds now, and that's always an indicator that there is some weather on its way. It can take a couple of days, though, to start to develop. But maybe this afternoon we'll be able to see if we start to see any cumulonimbus clouds and things sort of coming in. That'll be nice. And we need it. There's another little one. Who's living in here? We just check the little pans. Is that a beetle? What are, no, I don't know what those, you see what I'm looking at? No, it looks like, what are those? Marula seeds? Maybe it's the marula fruits from the elephants that were playing around in here. That actually does look like the skin. There's a couple of them. Yes, I think that's exactly what we're looking at. Okay, not a little beetle. I got excited. I thought it was somebody coming down to quench their thirst on this hot day. But it's time for us to say cheerio to all of you, but I hope you've enjoyed it. We've had an incredible day with the leopards, of course, and their exciting adventures with the crocodile too. And hopefully that crocodile will be around for tomorrow morning for the television show, of course. But for myself and Brian, it's been fantastic, and we'll see you soon. But we're going to go back across to James now in the tent.
I'm not in the tent, I'm just completing my Waltheria garden here. I'm not sure how good a job I've done. I'm just quickly trying to sort of get each individual plant into its own little mound. I've put water in it, I've put the original soil that I found them in all around there, and I'm hoping that they will grow here. You can hear Connor Teagues is in the air just above us. Feels like he's about to sit on my head with his drone. Thankfully he isn't. And so hopefully these will grow. Now my mother is extremely green-fingered, and I'm not sure that she would approve particularly of the way I've planted these. I'm just going to dig a little hole for this one here. I did have a spade. Yes, I think I might need a bit of spading here. Let's quickly do that. It's been a rather wonderful drive, hasn't it? All of the dogs and cats and things. So I think we're going to take it to the air, are we? Are we going to take to the air? Oh, not just yet. We're going to stay here, and I'll just quickly plant this thing for you. And then we'll take to the air. There we go. In it goes. And let's just hope it survives. And then we shall reseed it with caterpillars, I think. And hope that they make it through the whole of the TV show. And a bit more soil there. All right, we're going to go to the air, everybody, as we say goodbye to you. Thank you very much for joining us on our safari this morning, or afternoon, where some of you are, I suppose. Please remember, unfortunately, there won't be a sunset safari this evening because, of course, we're in private rehearsals, so I apologize for that. But tomorrow morning, of course, 0600 Central African Time, 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we will be on the Nat.Geo Wild Sunday evening for our TV show. Have a wonderful day wherever you happen to be in the world, and I shall be planting. Bye-bye.